Me and my twin sister never got along, but when she tried to ruin my perfect day, my wedding day, oh, I couldn't let that slide, so I did something many would consider vile. I, 23 female, I'm a twin. My twin sister Kelly and I are identical in looks, but we're extremely different in personalities. I'm very down to earth and don't really like to make a big fuss about anything, but Kelly, she's the ultimate drama queen. She's always been the golden child in my parents' eyes, and I think it's mainly because she's always been, quote, daddy's little girl, where I've always been much more independent. Unfortunately, what my parents don't seem to realize is that their golden child learned very early on that by sucking up to my dad, she was able to get anything she wanted. She took advantage of that every chance she got. Kelly and I totally go against the worldviews of what twins would be, especially identical twins. We've never gotten on with each other, and I think it's because our personalities are so different, so we never really had anything in common. At school, we did not have the same friends, and we never hung out together unless it was a family event. At home, we would argue and fight all the time. My parents always took her side because she was very good at playing the victim and can cry whenever she wants. I was so happy when we finished high school and I went off to university because it gave me a chance to get away from being the underdog, and also gives me a chance to develop my own personality, which was not one of a pair. Most people at university did not know I was a twin, as I would just say I had a sister. I met Tom in my second year of university at a party, and we just hit it off right away. We had lots of things in common, and for a few months we were just friends until we started dating. Once we were dating, I had to admit that my sister was actually my identical twin. And as things were getting serious, I took Tom home to meet my family. Tom was, I think, amazed at how much Kelly and I looked alike. If we did not talk and wore the same clothes, most people could not tell us apart. We have the same hair. Not because we chose it, but it's a style that just suits us, as we are identical twins in both. I consider dyeing my hair a different color, but I have lovely chestnut hair with red strands, and it's too pretty to cover in dye. Tom joked about not being able to tell his girlfriend apart until Kelly opened her mouth. And well, of course, her personality began to show. Now he said there's no way he would even mix us up, as Kelly's demanding personality shows right through. My parents love Tom from the moment they've met him. My dad owns a chain of car garages, and he's always tinkering with classic cars in the garage. Tom, which I didn't realize before, also had a love for old cars. And that first holiday then spent hours together out in the garage together. The cars are something that I did bond with him over too. I loved taking engines apart and seeing how they worked. Kelly would not interrupt this time, as she would never get oil on her skin. And so for a short time each day, I got Dad all to myself. When we left to return to university, my dad whispered to me that I needed to marry him as he was a good man. It was one of those few things my dad and I 100% agreed upon, apart from our love of mechanics. I laughed and said I had no intention of letting him go, as he was the perfect man, handsome, kind, and good with his hands. Well, after we left university, Tom and I both began to work for my father. It was amazing to have my relationship with my dad change from the twin who always was in trouble for irritating her sister to the one who could strip a car engine as well as any man, which my dad admired. Kelly curled up her lip when she found out. She couldn't believe I would choose a career which involved being covered in oil and grease every day whilst wearing ugly men's overalls. She would never lower herself to that, she told me, repeatedly. During my last year of university, Kelly met Lance, and if I could have predicted the man she would get together with, Lance would have ticked all the boxes. He was the male version of my sister. He probably spent as much time at the beauty salons as Kelly did. I'm pretty sure they go together. I mean, he never even has a hair out of place. His clothes are expensive, but surprisingly cheap looking, and he would never get his hands dirty in the garage. It might ruin his manicure. I disliked him with a passion, and I think that the feeling was mutual, but I didn't really care, as Kelly and Lance were not a big part of my life. Once a week, we would all gather at my parents' for lunch, but we never socialized outside of that. I noticed that Kelly seemed to be growing in resentment towards me around 6 months after I started working with my dad. She upped her daddy's girl routine and started to complain to my mother a lot about how I was taking her daddy away from her. Guys, she's 23 years of age, and she still calls our parents mommy and daddy, usually in a whiny little girl's voice. It's pathetic. It's annoying. My mom, bless her, is a bit gullible when it comes to Kelly, and when Kelly said she was sad she was being left out, my mom would treat her to things to make up for it. I'm not sure how. Shoes, handbags, and nail appointments made up for not having time with my dad, but Kelly said it helped. Yeah, so I think you get the idea of how our relationship is at this point. 4 months ago, Tom proposed to me when we were away on holiday. He had been a traditional guy and asked Dad for my permission, and, well, then whilst we were camping by a beautiful lake, he popped the question to me at dusk, which is my favorite time of the day. It was actually the perfect proposal in my eyes. Kelly rolled her eyes when I was gushing to my mom about how perfect it was and said that Lance would have done it somewhere much better and more upmarket than in a dirty woods near a bit of water. She could not take the shine of my happiness, though, even when she made passive-aggressive comments about my ring. My mom and dad suggested we have the wedding at a venue in our city, which was extremely exclusive and famous for being the venue where film stars, and I guess you could say the elite, had their weddings. Although I like to be down to earth, I agreed immediately, as my wedding should be the best day of my life. My parents are wealthy, and so for them it was the logical place to have their daughter's wedding. We went to view the rooms where the wedding would take place to secure the date and get an idea of the space for the arranging of the decor. I was blown away at how beautiful it was. Kelly had tagged along, and looking back, I think I should have noticed at the time that she was unusually quiet and did not make nasty comments towards me as she normally would. That should have been a sign that something was oh so wrong. But I was much too happy to pay any attention to her. We had set the wedding for almost a year away, as we did not want to rush with the planning, and we had family all around the world, so I wanted to make sure they had time to make their plans. I was in no rush and just wanted to be married. It was probably a good way that we did not do a quick wedding, as the venue was so popular that we booked the first available date anyways. If we had wanted anything sooner, we would have to pick another venue. As it was, we got lucky as someone else had canceled. I think it shows how popular the venue was that the next available date was almost 18 months out from the wedding. Everything was going great. I was happy and life was good. A week after we booked the venue, Lance proposed to Kelly in a massive over-the-top proposal. It was so tacky it was almost laughable. Kelly did a whole show of being surprised, but she really is just a terrible actor. It was obvious she had been the one to plan it. So now there is where the problem is I'm facing. I just need to work it out and figure out what to do. This brings us up to date. Kelly is technically older than me by a whole 3 minutes. She's used this argument our whole life, and she was about to try to use it again. On Sunday, as usual, we went for dinner at my parents', and Kelly made an announcement that literally shocked me into silence. I had no words. Kelly announced in the middle of dinner, she said that she was the eldest daughter, and of course she's entitled to be married first. She would not settle for a venue that had less style and social standings than my venue. So she therefore expected that I would move my date so that she would have my wedding date. She said it just makes sense as it's already booked and there was no sooner dates. She said that I have mentioned that Tom and I were in no hurry, so we could just book again for the dates in nearly 2 years' time. I'm not sure who was the most shocked, Tom, me, or my parents. Once the shock wore off, I was absolutely furious and said there's no way in heck I was going to give her my dates for the wedding. The invitations had been written and we've started to book vendors. There was still a lot of planning to do, but that was my date, and she would have to find somewhere else or take a later date. At that moment, there was no one else in the room apart from me and Kelly as we stared at each other across the table. I could sense the tension in the room, to be honest, as people watched us, and then Kelly performed one of her famous tricks for getting her own way. She began to sob dramatically and basically fell over a chair, having a tantrum on the floor. Tom and I left at that point before I did something I regretted. My mom called me later and asked me to think about letting Kelly have the date as she was more sensitive and delicate than I was. I said no, and my mom sounded disappointed in me. Am I wrong? Should I let Kelly have the date? Tom and I are in no hurry, but I'm so tired of Kelly always getting her way. Update number 1. This is a fairly short update. After Kelly made her demands for me to give up her date, I was so angry and my reaction was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Once we got home, I spent quite a lot of time pacing around our apartment, ranting and waving my arms. It was slightly funny as in a way I was being everything that I hated about Kelly. I was being dramatic and pathetic. Tom watched me as I paced and kept quiet, letting me work things out in my head. Once I calmed down a bit, we sat down to talk. Tom said in theory we could change our date as we agreed we weren't in a hurry. And we've even been considering not getting married, just staying as we are. In our mind, we did not need marriage certificate to prove that we loved each other. We talked for hours, and I said the main reason I was annoyed was that Kelly had 100% expected that I would just agree to give up my date for her. She had gotten so used to everything being given to her, and it's not crossed her mind that I would not agree to it. When I said no, her next step was to throw a tantrum, which when we were children usually meant that my parents would give her what she wanted. One Christmas, Kelly and I got a doll each. They were similar, but mine had blonde hair and hers had dark hair. Well, guess this. Kelly wanted the blonde one and she asked me to swap. I said no, as it was my toy. Kelly screamed and sobbed and pulled her hair until Mom said that I should be a good sister and swap dolls with Kelly. They gave my doll to Kelly, and as soon as my mom left the room, Kelly's tears immediately stopped, dried up like a well with no water, and she smirked away with my doll. It happened again and again all over in our lives, and I always gave in to her to stop the tantrums. And my parents always told me I was the mature one and Kelly was a delicate little flower who needs to be kind to. Tom and I talked, and I told him all the stories from my childhood where Kelly got the things she wanted even if it meant I had to give her the things I had. I cried and let out a lot of pent-up hurts from over the years. I asked if she would just give in, as she always gets her way. Tom looked over at me, shook his head, and he said that we were not giving in this time. I'm entitled to be happy, and we were going to keep our wedding date. Kelly, well, I guess you just have to deal with it and grow up. I didn't think it was possible to love that man more than I already do, but that night I realized, oh yeah, it's possible. So our decision was made. We got ready to face the fallout that was about to follow. Update number 2. Things have been as expected since Kelly made her demands. She's not speaking to me at the moment and lets us to be passive-aggressive and just complaining about things. I've been distracted from work and looking at things I want in place for our wedding. Tom and I sat down with my parents and discussed funding, as they're adamant that they're all paying for it. I explained that I didn't want anything over the top, as it was not who I was, and it was important to me that my wedding represented who Tom and I were as people. I wanted to be simple and classy. I've seen the dress that I've wanted, and it was beautiful, but simple. White satin dress. My mom at first tried to convince me to have things a bit more flashy, but my dad took my side and said that when Kelly settles on a date, she would be more flashy wedding, and so I should be allowed the wedding I wanted. I smiled and thanked my father as we were getting closer and closer as the time went on. My dad also said that we would be given the same amount of money for our wedding as he would not play favorites with his daughters. I said that might not sit well with Kelly as she would want a much bigger wedding than me. My mom was silent, and I thought she probably already knew what Kelly was expecting. I didn't care what happened with Kelly's wedding. All I cared about was mine. Things really did settle down over the following weeks, and slowly, Kelly began to acknowledge I existed again. As we've never been close, it was actually not that bad when she stopped talking to me. However, yesterday something surprising happened, and I'm not sure what to do. I was at work and Kelly came in. She never comes to the garage. She hates the noise, the smell, and, well, the dirt. She'll come over to the car showroom, but she never comes into the back part. We were all surprised to see her. She carefully picked her way over the car, and I was working on it. It was actually funny watching her tiptoe around tools and dirt. Her coat clutched tight to her body, of course. Who wears a cream coat in a garage anyways? She hovered in front of me for what seemed like an age and then said, let's go for lunch, we need to talk. Well, I was shocked and worried. I didn't want to be a part of Kelly's tantrum in a crowded place. Tom nodded at me across the room, and so I reluctantly agreed to go. Kelly did manage to get a little dig in as she asked me to try and clean myself up a bit and put on some real clothes, before tiptoeing her way back out to wait for me in the clean showroom. I looked at my dad, but he shrugged to say he had no idea what was going on. I was a bit apprehensive when I cleaned myself up a bit and went to meet my sister. We went to a small cafe around the corner, and I honestly never expected what she was about to say. For the first time in her life, Kelly said she was sorry. I think I probably looked like an idiot as I blinked and stared at her, but she has never said sorry to anyone in her life. I started to speak, but she held her hand up to silence me. She said that she's gotten so excited when Lance proposed and had obviously wanted to marry him as soon as possible. She had fallen in love with the venue and had heard, when we went to view it, how long she would have to wait following my wedding. And, well, she would be very disappointed. She said that she realized she'd acted badly and she wanted to make peace with me. She also said that they were now looking at the next available date at the venue, and she wanted to know if I'd allow her to be my maid of honor, so that she would make things up to me by helping plan the wedding. She said that she's been thinking really hard and realized that our relationship was not what it should be. We were twins and should be close. She was crying again at this point, but it was not the usual sobbing she normally did. No, they were real tears, quiet and sad. I was honestly shocked to the core. I didn't know what to say. Kelly has never tried to make peace, and although there was this part of me that did not want to trust what I was hearing, I've never seen her like this, and it was a different form of Kelly. Much, much more mature and honest. I took a deep breath and said I'd be happy to have her as my maid of honor, and I hoped that it would be a chance for us to finally bond as sisters. Just when I thought Kelly could not surprise me more, she hugged me tight. Then I cried. I left our lunch to go back to the garage partially in shock and told Tom and Dad what happened. Tom could tell I was weirded out by the whole scenario, but he said that I should go with it and use this as an opportunity to build a new and better relationship with Kelly. Honestly, my dad looked so happy that I smiled and said I'd try so hard. I was genuinely happy that what was happening. So, it looks like things are looking up, and I can now really look forward to marrying the man of my dreams with a united family behind me. Update number 3. Hey guys, things have been going well. I feel like I'm living a dream. I keep waiting for the bubble to burst. I was not going to add anything more to this because when I last updated, things were changing for the better and is still going pretty well. Kelly's like a person I don't recognize, and it's the sister I wish I had my whole life. We're getting along so well. I still don't like Lance and find him extremely annoying, but I can't have everything. The planning's going so well, and as the date gets closer, I'm really beginning to get excited for my wedding. The vendors are booked, my dress is ready, and all the people I invited said they're coming. It's going to be a heck of a day. I guess I wanted to add a little update to say that if you have issues with your family, don't give up hope. Things can always get better. My wedding day's 3 months away, and for once in my life, I'm excited. Update number 4. My wedding was supposed to be in 6 weeks when my world was crashing down to my feet. I'm such an idiot. A leopard does not change its spots, and I'm so stupid that I believed Kelly wanted to be a good sister to me. She's used and abused my trust, and now everything is like something out of my worst nightmare. I'll try and make sense, but I'm so hurt and upset that I don't know if I can type this in any way that people will understand. I'm so angry that I did not listen when people who were looking in from the outside told me that Kelly was probably wanting something. And it was strange that she would suddenly have a total change of personality when she'd always been so demanding. I wanted so much to believe that she actually wanted to build a relationship with me. I wanted to make my parents happy and get on with my sister so they weren't caught in the middle of it, the arguments and everything, but I've made a huge mistake. Well, where do I start? I guess I should maybe try and work out where it all went wrong for myself more than anything. After Kelly and I made peace, she was brilliant. She came with me to the appointments, she helped me choose my decor and vendors, and she was totally lovely about the dress I chose. Well, even though it wasn't her style. She was open with me about when she was booking her date and admitted that she had more expensive taste and that she had opened a funding page to ask family members to contribute to her wedding, instead of gifts. She sounded as though she had really grown up. Well, we looked at the hairstyles and Kelly asked if it'd be okay if we had our hair cut to exactly the same length and style, like my mom made us do as children. She said she wanted to show we were twins and closest sisters. I fell for all her crap. I was so happy that our relationship was getting better and I never saw what was coming. A couple of times, Tom asked me if I was really okay with us looking truly identical, and I said I was enjoying it. Well, he also pointed out it was strange that Kelly had been shopping and bought similar to my style to wear when we went out to the wedding things. So, I told him that this was the happiest I've been in years, and to butt out of my relationship with my sister. That was the first time we've ever really argued. I can't believe I risked my relationship over my lying snake of a sister. You see, Kelly had a plan, and I have to admit, as much as it hurts, I'm impressed she had the intelligence to come up with it. Tom saw the danger signs and I just completely ignored him. I was oblivious, and to my relief, my parents also were blindsided by what happened. It would have totally destroyed me if either of my parents had played a part in what happened, so here it is. Kelly pretended to be me. Whilst we were shopping, she managed to get hold of my ID and wallet, and she used to cancel all my wedding. I thought I lost my wallet ID, but she said she's picked up my bag by mistake, and we just laughed about it. If I had known what she had done, there would have been a lot less laughing and possibly a bit more violence. Well, as it was close to the wedding, the venue was entitled to keep 25% of the money we've paid, and so we would lose a very large chunk of money. But the cunning Kelly, she had a plan. She told the venue, still pretending to be me, that her sister Kelly was getting married, and I wanted her to have the date. She said that Tom and I decided we wanted to wait a while before getting married. The venue is happy to not have lost the whole event, and happily agreed, and everything was changed into her name. The invites were resent with the same dates, but with Kelly and Lance's name instead of Tom and I. That's how I found out that I was no longer getting married on that date I thought I was. So, I got an invite to Kelly's wedding on my wedding day, at my venue. I just thought it was a mean joke and immediately rushed to talk to my father. He was already at work, and so he had not seen the invite. He was just confused and phoned Mother, who had been to the phone to see what was happening. Over the day, relatives after relatives phoned in confusions, and I got more and more upset. Kelly had disappeared, as I assumed even she was not stupid enough to face me. So I went home and just called the venue. But they said they had seen my ID and everything had been on board. Oh my, that evening I was exhausted with answering questions and trying to save my wedding. I was ready to fall into bed and hope that I woke up and it was all a bad dream when my parents arrived. They managed to track down Kelly, who was hiding at Lance's house for the first time in her life that she's been on the receiving end of my parents' anger. I just cried in my mother's arms for what felt like hours. Then my dad said something to me that I was shocked to hear. He said, "Let her have it." I looked at him in shock because I could not believe he was taking Kelly's side. However, he wasn't. He was actually offering me an alternative. He'd spoken to one of his friends who owned a villa on a very exclusive island community, and his friend had offered to host our wedding at his winery. It would be everything Tom and I loved, as the villa was surrounded by nature and water. I looked at Tom. He smiled. And well, I admitted my dad had already talked to him and it sounded perfect. I nodded and agreed, taking a deep breath before saying that I was so sorry, but I still could not let her get away with what she's done. My mom said she should understand and that all their relatives and family friends were horrified when she explained what happened. They all had said that if I wanted, they would not attend Kelly's wedding. However, I have a better idea. In the run-up to Kelly's wedding, there were secret plans being made that would have made the best spies envious. I would get my revenge on her, and then go on to have an even better wedding than the one I've originally planned. I'll leave the actual wedding day and follow up as another update, as it seems like it's going to be glorious. Revenge time. Update number 5. Final update. I feel like I should be dramatic and announce the aftermath is a cringy villain voice. Because what happened was better than I've ever hoped. Over the weeks before Kelly's wedding, we contacted everyone and asked them to wear black. Not just a bit of black, but full-on mourning clothes. I even pushed the boat out and got a hat with black veil over my face. Technically, I wasn't invited, but that was not going to stop me. Oh no. I was so proud to see my parents and family supporting me. It looked like a goth reunion in the venue when we arrived. I could see on Lance's face as he waited on Kelly that he expected a full-on tantrum. As Kelly arrived, she could not see inside the room where the ceremony was taking place, and as she walked in, the first notes of the Requiem Mass sounded, instead of the wedding music she wanted. My grandmother, God love her, went full on and was dabbing her face with a laced handkerchief as Kelly walking down the aisle. No one looked at Kelly, just sat with sad faces. I could see the anger building in Kelly as she walked down towards what I can only describe as a terrifying-looking officiant. Lance looked like he wanted to run away. As you can probably imagine, I was having the absolute time of my life. When Kelly got to the front, it started. She hushed the officiant as he started to speak and looked for me. She screamed like a banshee that I was ruining her day, and I was. Well, names I'm not going to type as I don't want to be banned from this place. No one reacted, just sat there as she was not talking. I mean, we were at a funeral and who pays attention to what the corpse has to say? It was like she did not exist, and it was well worth the face full of roses I got when she finally snapped and hit me with her flowers. That's when I laughed and said, karma hurts, doesn't it? The last thing I remember as I walked out with my head held high was the sight of my sister in her princess wedding dress on her back in the center of a room, shrieking and rolling around while as people stared at her in shock. She really showed her true colors, and she looked like an idiot. It was everything I hoped for. So that's how I got my revenge. I'll never have a relationship with Kelly now, and from what I hear, she never even got married that day because people left. And she had a full-on meltdown. This all happened a few weeks back, and I heard Lance had left her. Tomorrow, Tom and I fly out to our wedding venue with the same people who helped me take down my sister. There will be no black, no drama, and we'll have the best day ever in the beautiful sunshine surrounded by natural waters and everyone I love. I did wonder if Kelly would try to turn up, but my mom said there's no way as Kelly checked herself into a spa to, quote, get over her trauma and probably was not even aware my wedding was even happening. Life's a roller coaster and sometimes you have to lower your morals and I guess play dirty. I have no regrets, and I'll walk down to meet Tom tomorrow for the start of our married life and, well, a happy life and a happy future. Alright, so this one was very interesting. You could see that OP, her entire life, she had to stand up and be the bigger sister, even though she was technically born 4 minutes later. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about this story, guys. I have to say, though, maybe it was the enablement from the parents that led the sister to being so out of control. Let me know your thoughts about this, and also, guys, let me hear your opinion. What you would do if you were in OP's position and you find out that your sister was trying to ruin your big day after faking for months that you guys were on a better track. Let me know your thoughts, guys. If you're new to the channel, hello, my name's Mr. Reddito. I read stories every single day. If that's something you're into and you want more stories like you read today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here tomorrow. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you then.